going, he's really negative, but I kind of think you're not being very positive. There's this thing right now, the positive power of positive thinking, just happy thoughts and it's all going to be good, right? And the universe loves you. No, it doesn't. Probably doesn't really care about you very much. So what I'm into is the positive power of negative thinking. And I hope that as my kids get older, they're also looking at it the same way. You know, maybe my daughter is 15, and I know what I was doing at 15, and there's a bunch of drinking, and there's a car going somewhere, and I hope she looks at that, adds up the danger, and goes, death, and gets it. It's not negative. It's about making good decisions in life and thinking things through. This has saved me over and over again. In this photo here, I'm 16. I'm positive. I got this. I'm going to run this. And then I'm also looking over on the side. There's ice there. What if you got pushed underneath the ice in your kayak? Like, what would you do? And I was thinking about this, and I paddled off. I got this. I'm 15. I was really positive at age 15. Paddle off this thing, current stronger. Next thing you know, I'm under the ice. And it's dark, and there's no air. This is not going well. But I've been thinking, what would I do in this situation? And I was like, well, I'd swim for the light. So I got out of my kayak, and I got up underneath the ice, and I went along it, and the air bubbles, I still remember this, were too thin to suck on. I tried that out, and I just kept moving toward the light, and I popped up, and all my friends were like, no way, you lived. So that's what I mean by the positive power of negative thinking. It's like, have a plan, and even for when things are going sideways, and it leads you more towards success. The next one I use a lot is anticipating and expecting change. This is abnormal. You're all sitting there nicely, but things change all the time. When I'm out in the mountains guiding, my client may be like, we're getting to the summit. And I'm like, this isn't a bad Everest movie. We're also going to get down. You know, we're going to make it down today. And then maybe the weather starts getting better. And I've won a lot of competitions and stood on a lot of summits by myself because I also recognized that things were improving. So change is both negative and positive. It depends how you look at it and the fact that you embrace it and pull it toward you and what you do with that. Now, the next thing that I'm into thinking about and sharing as I do all these high-risk things, I learned from a very famous Eastern Zen Buddhist philosopher named Clint Eastwood. There's this scene in a movie that's really struck with me. And he looks out and he goes, a man's gotta know his own limitations. And what he meant by that is that you gotta know when you're operating in an area where you're competent and in an area where you're not. YouTube is full of people who had a very high level of confidence. I can do it. My mom said so. I'm going for it. And a very low level of competence. Right? This is what the fail reels on YouTube are full of. And I don't want to be that guy very often. I'm going to make it occasionally, but I want to avoid that. So I always think, do I actually know what I'm doing? It's a really relevant question. And if not, I bring people in who do. A few years ago, I had this great idea that I was going to go climb icebergs. And this sounded rad. You know, here in the Rockies, icebergs. I'm really good at climbing ice. I actually know something about that. I've been doing it my whole life. Right on. And I showed up there, icebergs, I know what to do with these, but there's an ocean. I knew nothing about that. I had this idea that if the iceberg started rolling, the boat would come in and I'd like nimbly leap onto the bow. And it isn't like that. When those things roll, big chunks come flying off and the boat heads the other direction, you are on your own. And so I was like, all right, that's not going to work. And I just recognized I was way outside my league and got some great pictures. The return on investment was great for sponsors and stuff, but I ran away. And that decision is what allowed me to climb Niagara Falls 20-some years later. You've got to recognize when things just aren't working out and get out or get more competent somehow. So if you put these three things together, there's pluses and minuses in all of them, but what they really are is kind of an arsenal to defeat fear. Because the other great philosopher, Frank Herbert, who wrote the series Dune, he had this line, fear is the mind killer. It's what takes you down, destroys your dreams, stops you cold from functioning effectively, and it's no good. So what I often see is people saying, conquer your fear. This does not work. I've tried a lot, it doesn't. But if you use these tools and dig into it, it's like, right, what's going to go wrong, and what's my plan if it does? Is it still worth it? Yes, no. What's happening? Are things changing? Better? Worse? Do I know how to deal with that? Yes, no. And you chip away at it. Am I any good at it? I hear Clint Eastwood's voice all the time. Once I've done all that work, then, and I've pushed into that fear, I've leaned into it and given it a shoulder, and we've wrestled a bit and felt each other around, then we can dance. We can go out and do something cool and go out and do these amazing things. My little